All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Gervonta Tank Davis in the lightweight division, specifically going in on Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia and the rest of the class. Gervonta Tank Davis, man, I'm hoping that he's doing what he said he wants to do, but let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're in the lightweight division. We have a big fight coming up this weekend, and actually the next 2 weekends, with Gervonta Tank Davis fighting Rolly Romero this Saturday in New York, and then the week after that, in the afternoon, Saturday afternoon, Devin Haney fighting George Kambosos for the Undisputed Championship. Now, Brian Custer on his podcast, The Last Stand, gave an interview, had an interview with Gervonta Tank Davis. It came out today. Very, very good interview as usual by Brian Custer. And Gervonta Davis shares what he's going to do next and talks about the Rolly Romero fight, but he also talks about the Floyd Mayweather Jr. situation and also what he wants to do after the Rolly Romero fight. Now, before I get into that though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber to the channel, thank you for your support. It is greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel, please accept my invitation to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon so that you can be notified of when we release more videos, which we do on a daily basis in live streams and the video short videos where there's always a good conversation taking place about boxing, in the comment sections. All right, so first things first, Gervonta Davis confirms that he is leaving Floyd Mayweather Jr., confirming it again, that he is leaving Floyd Mayweather Jr., Mayweather Promotions, and that he is doing so because he says it's time for him to take the training wheels off. He's an older guy now. He can handle his own business as far as own promotions. Also, I'm sure that it has, a good bit to do with, him being able to make a little bit more money on his fights because he's not paying those promotional fees anymore. So with that settled, now the conversation about who he fights next is much more directly related to what Gervonta Davis wants to do, and not necessarily what Leonard Ellerbe or Floyd Mayweather Jr. thinks makes a good fight. Now, obviously, he's still working with Al Heyman. So as far as making the fights and cutting the deals and all of that stuff, he still has that in place. So it's not more than likely that's not going to prevent him from getting deals done, because Al Heyman is, if not the best, one of the best guys in the business as far as getting fights done. But he said, man, that he wants to fight either the winner of George Kambosos and Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia next. But specifically, he had a whole lot of, angst with Devin Haney, saying, look, man, because he was asked by Brian Custer, what do you think about Devin Haney saying that you're not being loyal to Floyd Mayweather Jr., and how Floyd Mayweather Jr. built you and how you should stay and be loyal to Floyd Mayweather Jr. Man, Gervonta Davis said, how about you, Mr. Email Champ? Said, because first of all, dude, you ain't even a real champ yet. You got that belt that you got handed to you in email. So he didn't respect that. Then he said, how about I fight you next? Right? Right. How about I fight you next? We fight one another and you mind your business telling me what to do with Floyd Mayweather, what to do with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Right? Now, I find it interesting that anybody would question, especially like Devin Haney would question the loyalty of Floyd Mayweather Jr. when the same thing pretty much could be said about Devin Haney and Showtime at the very least, because that's the institution and the organization that gave Devin Haney a start was Showtime. And he did not have a problem skipping away from Showtime and going over there to the Zone when he got offered more money, right? So, that whole attitude about him not being able to change promoters to me sounded a little bit funny. But the good news is that, hey, man, if that taunts Gervonta Davis, and Gervonta Davis said, look, man, how about we fight you next, right? Or fight the winner of him and George Kambosos. like that out of Gervonta Davis. That's what he'd been saying that he wanted before. And he was very clear. He said, and you guys can tell these people I said that, right? So this is Gervonta Davis doing something that he was not doing, necessarily when he was with Floyd Mayweather, which was actually calling out these guys and saying who he wants to fight specifically, right? Which is, according to him, Devin Haney and George Kambosas. Now, he also said, that there's conversations about him fighting Ryan Garcia. And he said that he may fight Ryan Garcia before the end of the year. But, he really does. He's like, man, but I don't know, because I want to have I got my eyes on the winner of this next fight with Devin Haney and George Kambosas. Now, obviously, from a boxing fan's my perspective, as a boxing fan, I want to see him fight the winner of George Kambosas, Devin Haney. However, in order for that to take place, George Kambosas is going to have to be the one that wins, because George Kambosas is the only guy that can fight him in the next fight. If Devin Haney wins that fight against George Kambosas, Devin Haney's got to fight Devin Haney's got to fight another fight with George Kambosas, because he has a rematch clause in there with George Kambosas. And then if he does that, he's still got another fight to take place with ESPN. So if that takes if George Kambosas wins the fight, then yeah, they can probably go right into a fight between between George Kambosas and Gervonta Davis. But if Devin Haney wins, it may be the later half of 2013 before a fight can be made with Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis. And if that situation comes to be, it's more than likely not the case that the fight would happen, because Devin Haney is probably going to be at 140 by that time, because he's already a big guy for that class, and was already talking about moving up to 140 pounds. There's also a chance that even he may move up to 140 pounds, even if he beats George Kambosas, because that's the second fight. Even if he does, Gervonta Davis isn't going to meet him at 140 pounds. Gervonta Davis is going to probably fight for one of the vacant belts that are out there at 135 pounds. But whatever the case is, it's really good to hear that Gervonta Davis is asking for these fights, that he wants these fights, and that he should be in a position to be able to make the fights, because he's going to be in a situation that is similar to Canelo Alvarez, where he's going to be able to fight on any network that he could probably fight on any network that he wants to. He's not signed, to a multi-fight deal with Showtime, even though all of his fights to date, as far as I can recall, have been on Showtime. He could probably jump over there to ESPN for a pay-per-view on ESPN. He could jump to DAZN on a pay-per-view with DAZN. Anyway, provided, that I think, I'm not sure what the advisory contract says with Al Heyman, but, I would suspect that any of those guys, however, would have to come to him, because that's really is the big cash cow in that division. But anyway, I'm excited about this fight with Rolly Romero. I think Gervonta Davis is going to beat him in spectacular fashion. Then we'll get to see the next week a really good fight between Devin Haney and George Kambosas, and then we'll get to see what happens after that. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.